many people have seen how the first Descendant as a game has lost a very high player base. And some people said it's simply because, in the beginning, the game it's a new game, so it always gets like a massive number of people trying out the game, and then eventually it lowers down to a more stable player base. Although I believe TFD has gone decreasingly lower and lower to points where the game it's having 7,000 players daily. It's very, very low. Destiny 2 is doing better. Warframe is doing much better as competitors. And I've seen more and more people leaving the game. I'm talking content creators, or at least, playing less for good reason. I mean, I believe there's a bit of lack of content, which is what this video is going to be about. What I think the problem is, because last time I made a video about TFD, I'm still playing TFD, by the way. I'm just not posting videos because I think at this point it's kind of a useless thing to do. I don't think there's any people needing any help with anything in TFD. For me and my personal idea, the game has become fairly easy to play, but it also has become a bit of a brain dead game to play. And well, for me, the point was much when I started to grind for something and I fell asleep on the chair while grinding. That really drive home a very important point. I'm playing the game too much, which, when I was having fun with the game, it was cool. But then eventually you get to burnout, so don't play the game too much. That's an advice. But second, it's that it was boring. I was doing things, and the reason why I was doing things is because, like grinding. I was grinding because I want to try a new weapon or something. But then once I got everything I wanted and everything that looked interesting from the game, like the Descendant and the weapon, I was like, okay, now I can chill back and relax. And that's when the wall hits you, really. Because if you're not a collectionist and you don't play the game for simply collect everything, much like a Pokemon game, you just collect them all. If you don't play the game that way, and you look at the game from the perspective of, oh, I've got this new gun, I've made it cool, now let me test it and I'll play the game with this Descendant and this gun. I've got my sets together, now I'm ready to play the game. There's no other game to play. That was the game. If you enjoyed that grind, that's it, that's the game. There's a lack of content when it comes to after the grind. You see, and that's something I've heard many people say in recent videos, and I've heard people on Twitter or any sort of social media chat or whatever. Many people complain that there's no reason to grind. And I think this is what the TFD problem really is. I don't think the grind is too bad. I think there are a few adjustments. So one thing, for example, in the beginning, I used to pay for stuff in the game. Reason being, I wanted to support the studio. Since the game it's free and I was having fun with it, I think it's fair for me. I'm not saying people should do that, but for me it was fair to spend some money and support the studio because I'm playing a game and I'm having fun with the game, and I think they deserve the praise. The game was fun, the game was cool, I liked the story. It wasn't the greatest story, but it was okay for a live servicing game. Like, let's be honest, you can't really ask much from this type of games. But it was okay. The gameplay mechanic was fun. So because I engaged in a positive way and it was fun, I decided to spend some money. And I was okay with it. But now I decided I'm not playing the game as much, and I don't think they're heading in the right direction. And although they're not doing a bad job, I'm not playing the game much for me to spend any money. So I decided I'm going to play with Blair. I'm just going to grind for Blair. I want to see how it is. And I want to test a few things out. So I grind Blair, and it takes me merely 2 hours to grind all the pieces. But then to have Blair without paying and have it ready takes me 4 days, 3 days. Now I have 3 days when I want to play TFD and I want to test Blair, but the only way for me to actually play Blair is to pay. If I want to do it freely, I can't. And you see, this is a problem because many people don't want to spend money at this point in time. So they just go like, okay, I'm going to grind for stuff. I'm going to grind Blair, I'm going to grind the weapon. But then in between the grind and obtaining the pieces and the actual time that you can level up and grind and actually use the weapon or use the Descendant, extra days have to pass. I think that's a problem. Blair took me 3 days to use while only 2 hours to grind for, I think that's excessive. This is obviously going to drive people away. What happened to me is I said, I'm not going to pay for it. It was more of a question of morality. I said, I'm not going to pay for Blair, so I'm not going to pay for it. And so I said, okay, I'm going to wait. But there's nothing else for me to do in the game. Either I'd become like a collectionist and just go and grind other weapons, grind other Descendants, and do the same thing and just put everything to research, or I just go and play another game while Blair happens. And I played other games for 3 days. Then Oblivion came out, now Expedition 33 is out. I don't think I'm gonna be touching TFD anytime soon. So that's the thing that TFD has become, a bit of the background game that you play while nothing else happens in the industry, which I think is a good thing and a bad thing. Much like how Warframe is, in a way, at least for me, these are games that when there's nothing to do, you go back to them. But if there are new games coming to town and the novelty of the new games is there, it's shiny new object, you just go for it. Expedition 33, Oblivion, Baldur's Gate, Path of Exile, whatever it is that you're playing gets an update, you just go away from TFD. You just go away from Destiny. You just go away from Warframe. Whatever the live servicing game you're playing, you stop the grind, you get your novelty game, you get your new stuff going, and then when there's nothing for you to do when you're bored, you go back to this game. But I think this creates a bad mechanic because the way we consume content in these games is we really are treating this game like a Pokemon game. You just have to collect them all. But once you have everything, there's no point in playing the game anymore because what am I going to do with it? And this is the point that many people, I think, this is the issue I believe a TFD needs to address as a game, right? Is what am I going to do after? Because the weapon, it's a weapon. It's a means to an end. I shoot the bad guy dies, I'm happy. This is why I grinded for the weapon. But if the bad guy dies in 2 shots or gets obliterated by any Descendant like Serena, just casually named Serena, Ines, Freyna, Gley, it gets obliterated by any of these Descendants in 2 shots, why am I grinding? The reward, it's not of similar value to the grind. You grind for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, but for what? For 2 seconds of glory. It becomes absolutely senseless to people grinding so much. So, and this is not a debate whether the game is easy or the game is hard, because at some point everybody will get there where they have the build, where they have the damage, when they have the capability of taking down solo the hardest content. Whether it's now or it's later, if you keep grinding, you're eventually going to hit the same wall. The point is, what is after that wall? There's nothing. That's the problem that TFD is having right now. They said in Season 3 you're going to have open world and you're going to have vehicles. Okay, cool. So what exactly am I going to do with it? Because if the open world is still a server made by one of the players as a host in a 4-slot servers, what is the point? It's going to be an empty world, bigger but emptier. You're going to have the same problem that Starfield has from this exploration point of view, where people complain that everything was generated on the moment and it was hosted and it was just blank and empty. You had 3 things to do and that's it. The problem with the world is not the size. The problem with the world is the activities within the world that you do, within the map. And the map is very empty. All of the maps of TFD are very empty. When I was playing in the beginning on normal mode and we had plenty of players, it looked really fun because everywhere you go, you'll have 4 players engaging with the activities. So this will create monsters because of the engagement of the players that will start the mission and will start the mobs, and you'll shoot the mobs and you join the mission. But once you go in missions and maps where there's no one, the world is barren, is empty. Okay? Having a bigger world and empty doesn't make much of a difference unless you put everybody on a server, you make a giant server where there are 100 people going, then yes. If I have 100 people or if I have 20 people and I have open world activities that I can do on my own similar to Destiny, but meaningful, where there's drops and stuff, and you don't seclude me in a space where it's just me and other two guys shooting at something, that is going to become boring fairly quickly. So I think what TFD should address as a game to get people back, I don't think the game is bad by no means. I think people are just leaving because it's the natural order of things. When you play a game, you get to the end of it, you kind of grinded everything that needed to be grinded, and now you want to consume some more content, and the game doesn't have extra content except more grind. You just go to other games that have extra content, like a story mode. You play Expedition 33. You want to get on the wings of nostalgia. You play Oblivion. You want to go and lose yourself in an endless world of possibilities. You play modded Skyrim. People have been playing Skyrim for the last 10 years. For the last 10 years. Modded it and made it better and better and better and different and different and different. And that's the thing. Unfortunately, live servicing games, I believe we really need, as gamers, a good live service game that everybody wants to engage with. Destiny used to be that. Warframe was that for a bit, but none of the two really managed to keep people engaged. I think in part is a problem of content. You can't really put out quality content very often. So there needs to be a solution where content, even if it's repetitive, it's engaging to people so that they can continuously do it. Otherwise, people will just get bored of grinding for the same things, grinding the same maps over and over. Much like in Destiny 2, we had for PvP the same maps for bloody years. Even now, if I go back, I'm gonna know the maps in and out on a PvP map because they don't change it. And these are things that you really need to change very often. TFD, one of the things should have done, in my opinion, I'm not a developer, so obviously don't take my word for it, but I think the novelty of discovering new things on normal mode was really what I liked about the game. So when I was doing missions and I was uncovering new areas, I really liked that. Going on a map, clearing up the map and then moving to a different map that was locked behind it. It was fun. You could have that. Make more maps, make more enemies. Different enemies with different weaknesses and different strengths on new maps. Even if the story is not the greatest, at least you have new maps. You have new lands, you have new environments. Bigger, but not necessarily bigger and empty, but open world events that people can join in. These kinds of things, I believe in TFD would be really, really good. And content, that's like this kind of content is what TFD is missing. For good reason, people are leaving because once you hit this wall of, okay, I've got whatever I wanted, what am I going to do with it now? Slap it in your face because everything is dead, And it's not just Serena. This is not a Serena problem. That is not a power creep problem. It's simply a matter of content. There's a lack of content, there's a lack of fun at the moment, and this is why people are leaving. I am still playing the game. I don't leave a game. It's not like we are married and then we separate. I'm simply playing less when it's not as fun as it used to be. I consider how fun a game is based on how much I play it. When I don't play it at all, it's because it's not fun. When I'm looking around, it's like I'm not having fun with what I have in front of me. That's why I'm looking around. It's not a difficult concept. So yeah, TFD, I don't think it's a game that many people say like, oh, it's gonna shut down in a couple of months. No, I don't think that's the case. It's still having 7,000-8,000 players. I don't think it's doing that bad. But obviously, if you think of the game it's competing only with Warframe and Destiny, I think you're wrong because in that niche, it's competing just with these two live servicing games. But as a whole, when you make a game, it competes with every other game on the market. You release TFD on Steam, okay? It competes with the likes of Oblivion, Expedition 33, Marvel Rivals, and any other game. It doesn't matter if it's single player or multiplayer, even though they're separate games. The point is having fun. So the fun element is the main element in every game. Hence, you're competing with fun elements from any other game, not just the ones in your industry. So competitive... the competitive environment within the industry you're in, it's much bigger than you think. So yeah, I think TFD needs a little bit of freshness when it comes to content. You don't need a lot of new weapons. You don't need a lot of new Descendants. You really, really need to have something to do with what you already have. You can have an endless supply of of Descendants, but they're mostly like products on a shelf. You don't get to use them for anything. You need to get them off the shelf and throw them at something. Put them to do something, and there's nothing new to do. Hence, you just collect it and put it on a shelf, and then the new toy, you put it on a shelf. This is what drives people away, in my opinion. And you could argue that that is how TFD is supposed to work, and this is how live servicing is supposed to work, and this is how the grind is supposed to be. But if people leave, maybe it's not the way it's supposed to be. Momentarily, I'm playing TFD very little. I'm playing Oblivion. I intend to play Expedition 33, and there's a bunch of games I want to play, really. But I can't really get stuck with one game. And I was hoping TFD was that game, because I really enjoyed it in the beginning. And I really think we have a need. Most of us really want to go back to one game that engages all of us, like a massive community, much like Destiny 1 was. I don't know why, but when Destiny 1 came out, it really put together like a lot of people. And everybody was engaged and everybody was having fun. It was fun. I don't know what happened with Destiny 2, why it wasn't the same, but every live service game from Throne of Liberty and MMOs and every other live servicing game coming to New World and MMOs and Final Fantasy or whatever, none of these games are managing right now to keep us engaged onto one game with the mechanics they have for so long. It might be just because the novelty has worn off and now we are all kind of adults and we see the world through different lenses and we kind of expect most of the things, and as expert gamers, so to speak, we kind of know exactly what's coming. So it's very easy to munch through content fast. But I think the industry really is missing a live servicing game like Destiny 1 used to be. And something that doesn't really hold your hand, lets you discover it, even if the quality is not the best. And you can lose yourself in that world with friends and enemies and whatnot. I don't think Marathon is going to be that either, but we're going to talk about that in another video. But anyway, yeah, TFD I think needs really content. It's not the power creep the issue. I think it's the absolutely the lack of content and the lack of things to do with what you already have. I have my Python sitting there and there's nothing for me to do with it. I have many weapons and many Descendants and there's nothing for me to do with. I wanted to do Eugene and to be a healer and to help people. Help them do what? You know? So yeah. Anyway, have to go to work. I'll see you guys in the next one.